First, let me say good morning to all of you. The first thing is to understand the family is still grieving. My heart goes out to Leslie McFadden and her family on the loss of their son, Michael Brown. I could never understand the pain that they're going through, but I want them to know personally, whatever I can do, personally, I will do. Whatever St. Louis County can do to ease their pain, we will do it. My heart goes out to the family. I understand that the community frustration and the desire for information by the comment to you is that we will be as open as we can, and there are much as we can do without compromising the ongoing investigation. I want the truth, and you want the truth. This community cannot heal itself until we know the facts and give justice a chance. I am saddened by the action of last night. This was no way to pay respect and honor to Michael Brown's memory. His family now has to deal with this on top of trying to manage their grief. We are better than this. Justice is not swift, revenge is. We are not focused on revenge. We are focused on trust, truth, and justice. I had the opportunity this morning to talk to Governor Nixon and to Senator Blunt. And they are endorsing our idea with the chief that we're going to ask the FBI and the Department of Justice to assist us in this ongoing investigation. Our first responsibility is public safety and order. Everyone deserves a safe place to live in, and all property should be protected. And our police chief, Chief Belmar, is doing an excellent job in supporting that effort. As we go forward, we got to remember that this is going to be an open and transparent process. It's not going to be a quick process. This is a very difficult and complex situations. There are many sides to the story. There's many answers. We have not all the facts at this point in time. As we go forward, we will try to keep you abreast of all information that we have. We want to share it with you so you can be more appraised of what's going on in our community. It's about keeping people safe in this community, but understanding that St. Louis County is going to do everything we possibly can, not just to keep law and order, but to show people in St. Louis County that we're on top of this situation. We understand their frustration, we understand their concern, but we're going to do everything possible with all our partners. I want to thank the State Patrol, St. Louis City, Mayor Francis Slade and his support, his police department, St. Charles, and all the municipalities helping us to assist us in this most difficult situation. Again, we're asking all the public, be calm, be patient, and be prayerful. Thank you. At this time, Police Chief Belmar.
So last night, I'd like to give you kind of an overview of what happened with the protest up there. A crowd gathered in the late afternoon at Ferguson Avenue in West Florissant. So we had a pretty good idea, we being law enforcement in the area, Tom Jackson, Chief Jackson, myself, that we were to expect some sort of a vigil, a protest, whatever it would be. So we went ahead, we being the county police department, staged special operations up in the area, but we did not deploy them at the time. We really felt like that with the emotions running as high as they were with the shooting the previous day of Mr. Brown, that we didn't want to add to any of that. So later in the afternoon, it became very clear that special operations from the county was going to have to deploy, and they in fact did. They were eventually joined by what we call a Code 1000, which is a call for 25 additional police officers, and then a Code 2000, which was 25 more. It actually probably was closer to probably 100 municipal officers. The entire 3rd and 4th St. Louis County precincts were there, the entire Bureau of Special Operations from the county, the Highway Patrol, the Troop C element out of the Highway Patrol, St. Charles County was there also, along with St. Louis, and support elements from all of those departments. Basically, there was a line set up where the protesters were allowed to stand on West Florissant and Ferguson Avenue, and just to the south of Chambers Avenue. So there were 2 police lines there. Again, there was a lot of protest. There was a lot of folks there that were just kind of wanted to see it. They wanted to pay their respect to Mr. Brown and the family. And then there were others there in the crowd that, as it turned out, probably had other ideas. So our goal was last night as law enforcement was not ignite any sort of a problem, and we were really hoping that the crowd would disperse voluntarily. Buildings, the QT was burned, looting began, and we realized that at some point this was going to be something that we were going to have to react to. It was the scales were basically tipping to where we could no longer just stand on West Florissant and watch the looting and the destruction of property that was happening. And please understand that there were also shots being fired in the area. There were shots being fired very near where the initial command post was. So none of these kind of things were unusual. I think we had very adequate resources last night to deal with this. But when we dispersed the crowd, we tried to do it without any use of forces. And in fact, I don't believe we made any arrests doing so. But because they did not voluntarily disperse, they moved north up West Florissant Road, and they just parts of the crowd began looting businesses. Notable is the Walmart up in West Florissant near 270, the Walgreens, several shops in between. And there was the Foot Locker. Quite a bit damage was done during that time. We developed a plan to where we went away from the skirmish line model, went in the police cars, and we actually began to do lapping patrols so we could be more mobile for calls coming out. And there were thousands of calls last night, everything ranging from shots fired to burglaries to destruction of properties to assaults. It is a miracle, however, that nobody actually got shot last night, and I was expecting the worst. You never can tell when you're in an environment like this. 32 arrests were made last night, and I think that, again, I'd like to echo what Mr. Dooley said, the county executive. I think that we did a very good job initially of making sure the crowd had the opportunity to vent, but at some point we no longer could sustain that attitude. Moving forward, I want to assure the public, I want to assure everybody that we have the adequate resources to deal with this should it continue, and I pray that it does not. I've talked to Chief Sam Dodson in person about 3 o'clock last night in my office. I've been on the phone with the captain from Troop C. I was in on the conference call with Governor Nixon. I've talked to several municipal chiefs in the area. I really feel like, certainly with the assistance of the Highway Patrol, that we're well suited moving forward to make sure that we maintain the safety of the public. None of these kind of incidents, when they happen, are going to be perfectly executed, but I do feel like we have the resources and the manpower to keep the citizens of St. Louis County and the St. Louis region safe. I would like to talk a little bit about the initial investigation, just to clarify a few things. I would like to reiterate that Chief Tom Jackson from the Ferguson Police Department reached out to me, I believe, even before he was arriving on the scene. He had an officer-involved shooting. That's pretty much all he knew at the time. And he asked if crimes against persons and county ID, in fact, would investigate that. I told him that I would, that in fact, that at the end of the investigation, the facts and circumstances would be turned over to the prosecuting attorney's office, regardless of what they were. He said he understood that very clearly. He didn't have an issue with that. I want to assure you that this is a very complicated investigation, as it should be. A man lost his life, there's a police officer involved in this, and we need to make sure that this investigation is done right. We get one chance to do it. There are scores and scores of people we needed to talk to at the apartment complex where this happened. There are several witnesses that we needed to talk to, and frankly, we're still waiting to talk to some folks that we believe have information that will lend itself to this investigation. So when we get frustrated by the lack of information that's coming out on a case like this, we need to understand that even detectives that are investigating it right now don't have access to everything right now. So there has been no rush to judgment on this case either. I would like to tell everybody that the police department does nothing but gather facts and circumstances and present those to a neutral authority. And this case the prosecuting attorney, or the federal government, or both. And at that point, a decision's made, and it goes in front of a jury and a judge. So we make no recommendation on these. We just turn over the reports to the other folks. So I want to make sure that we clarified that. I've talked to Mr. McCullough. He is flying back to St. Louis today. He will be in his office this afternoon. I will meet with him in person. I also had a chance this morning to talk to Special Agent in Charge Bill Woods from the FBI. He called me this morning. As you might imagine, I've been in contact with Mr. McCullough and Mr. Woods' staff during this the last 36 hours, but the FBI notified me that they will be opening up an investigation that will run parallel to this investigation. Mr. Woods wanted me to reiterate that he had a tremendous amount of confidence in the St. Louis County Police Department, but he felt that at this point it was appropriate to open up that investigation. I understand that the public has a right to be skeptical, and I appreciate that, and I would expect that the public be skeptical oftentimes of government or some forms of it, but I would also ask the public to be reasonable, because it takes a long time to make sure we do this investigation the right way, and please understand that other disinterested parties, or neutral parties I should say, are going to be making the final decisions on whether this was justified or not. I've had the advantage of speaking to several community leaders. It is my wish moving forward that we have a calm night tonight and throughout the next week as we move through this process. I would implore that people use their best judgment and give the due respect to Mr. Brown that he deserves. In closing, the police department's condolences go out to Miss Leslie McSpadden. We understand her loss. I was in homicide for 7 years. I understand what the families go through. So again, they have our condolences. I'll take any questions. Or
Chief, on the investigation, has an autopsy been completed, and what can you tell us about the results?
So I can't tell you a lot about the results of the autopsy, because that, again, those are things that our investigative entities are going to want to take a look at. I believe that the individual was struck several times by gunfire. The autopsy was conducted yesterday morning, and I know that Mr. Brown has been, the deceased has been released to the family for burial. I know that.
Chief, about last night, some people are praising police for their restraint, as you said, to let the vent. But others, as I was listening on the way in, are saying, why did the police come in faster? That they would call 911 and the people on 911 would just say, well, we're watching it on TV. There wasn't a protection of property that some people wanted.
Well, later on in the evening, it was very difficult to wrap our arms around everything going on, even with 500 officers on the scene. It was just so dynamic that we couldn't be just everywhere at the same time. I think it's a fair assessment that somebody would look at this and say, why did the police allow this to happen? But on the other side, I think it's a fair assessment to understand that if the officers would have taken a hard line on this very early on during the protest, and we would have had acute resistance, that would have perhaps further inflamed the community. As it was, we had a tremendous amount of property damage on West Florissant Road, and as it was, we had no injuries, no fatalities last night during this protest.
Chief, the FBI taking over the case, or is it kind of joint investigation, or what's the?
No, it's a parallel investigation. So what happens is that the Bureau will take a lot of the information that we have developed already through our investigation that will be captioned in a police report, and then they'll take that information. They may do their own interviews. They may take a look at the evidence for themselves. But typically, it's a parallel, or what I would call a concurrent investigation. And I've done these before. Typically, what's going to happen is that we will share our information with Prosecuting Attorney McCullough's office, and at the same time with the federal authorities.
Chief, on the looting last night.
Does it give more validation when you bring in these other agencies?
I think any time that we can bring another independent agency in to take a look at this, I think it does validate it. I don't have any issue with that. I felt like this was going to happen anyway with the magnitude of this investigation, and I have an outstanding relationship with the Prosecuting Attorney's office, and the police department enjoys a very good relationship with the FBI also.
For this investigation, is there anything that's being done differently than when a police department usually goes to you during an officer-involved shooting? Is it normal not to release the name of the officer, or for it to take a long time? Like, tell me a little bit about the process.
Yeah, the investigation is exactly as it would be on anything else that we've done. It's just complicated by the fact that we had an issue with kind of the crowd on Canfield during this. That complicated a little bit, but I generally never have an issue assisting another police department with a criminal investigation, but I'm very cautious to get involved in their administrative matters. And the releasing of the officer's name is the Ferguson's Police Department responsibility, not mine. It's their officer administratively. That would be their responsibility.
Mr. Dooley, can I ask you a question? Because you can step up, please. We were chatting beforehand. You and I were surprised how this seemed to come out of nowhere. What was your reaction to how bad this thing erupted last night? And when just 48 hours ago, we wouldn't have even thought this would be something we would do.
Well, things happen in our community, decisions are made, and unfortunate things happen. It's the disappointment that it happened in St. Louis County. But what I can say is that I can appreciate the chief's quick response.
Yeah.
I can appreciate that the police department in Ferguson asked our police department to come in. I can appreciate our police department asking the FBI to come in. I can appreciate all the other entities come together to resolve this issue. We're not there yet.
I mean, were you appalled at the looting? Were you puzzled by it? Were you saying, how could they do this? What was your gut reaction?
Again, I was disappointed in that. Again, we talked about revenge. It's not about revenge, it's about justice.
Well, Chief, can I just ask you, John, how worried are you about a repeat performance tonight? I mean, is there a, I don't want to say a more detailed plan, but is there something in place to
There
try
is a
and
more
make
detailed plan. We learned from what we did last night. We learned for what worked, some things work better than others. So we developed probably a better plan than we had even last night. As this was developing, am I worried? Yes. Do I expect it? No. Am I planning for it? Yes. So I really do think at this point in the community, I have enough confidence in our community here. I've lived my whole life here that calmer heads will prevail moving forward, but I am planning for worst case.
Excuse me. On the looting investigation, will you be investigating the looting? Are you aware of anything being sold online on Craigslist or other places today? Tell us about how you'll investigate the looting, and can you?
So fortunately, what happened was that several of the looters were caught and apprehended during the commission of the crime. So that's a pretty easy case to wrap up. We have a lot of surveillance cameras in today's age, so we'll be able to depend on those. And yes, we will want to move forward not only on the looting, but the destruction of property. They're all very damaging toward businesses. And I know that speaking for Mr. Dooley and several people on the scene, we're anxious to have that commercial corridor in West Florissant, be back to what it was, because it's very important for our community.
Have you heard of anything being sold online that was stolen last night?
I have not heard that. It could. Somebody may know, but I don't.
Would you have a warning for anybody who might want to do this again tonight? Just think it's a shopping spree. What kind of time in jail? What kind of charges do these people who've already been arrested face?
Well, most of these on the lootings are going to be felonies because of the amount of damage that they have to do to get into the business. The fact that it's a burglary when they go into the business, which is a felony already, and the amount of merchandise that they take is also probably expensive to hit that threshold. So these people are looking at felonies. Again, I'd like to underscore, I don't have a problem with folks that want to peacefully protest. I understand that. But it's going to be very difficult for the department moving forward to allow things such as the nature of what happened last night.
Do you think that this situation is going to prompt a community discussion about race and racial profiling among the police and the community?
Well, I hope it does. And to be fair on both sides, I've had an opportunity in this job as the chief to talk to several groups. And I will tell you that the folks that I talk to, when I'm done talking with them, I'm energized and I enjoy doing it. But I don't talk in front of 150 people. I typically talk in front of 15. So I think that the police department's doing its job, and hopefully this is an impetus to get more and more people engaged with their local law enforcement, because we can't arrest our way out of problems.
And to follow to that, do you think that this is just a pure emotional reaction to the shooting, or do you think there's something deeper seated in what happened last night regarding perhaps people's concerns about racial relations? Is there a deeper element going on there? And how concerned are you about it?
know, I've thought about that. I really don't think I can answer that question right now. I would tell you that I think had the incident not happened with the police officer, this certainly wouldn't have happened. And I've been doing this 28 years. Not only have I never seen anything like this, I've never even heard about it in the history of St. Louis. So this is a very unusual event. I'll take another question. We'll wrap
Chief,
it up.
talk a little bit about how the social media played into the looters avoiding the police and how that worked.
Right, so 15 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, we wouldn't have had the issue with social media's impact on this crime spree. Because what folks can do is, as long as they're networked on the same Facebook site or Twitter or whatever they're doing, they have the ability to understand where they're all going to be, and they can basically plan where they want to go next. So it's a really efficient way to communicate. And I think that we began to observe that last night with the size of the crowds that were looting together. It wasn't just individual, but it seemed to be somewhat more massed.
And also what about your reaction to Anonymous's post and what they've said?
Anonymous as far as
Anonymous, the people who hacked and
yeah.
said, we're going to get everybody who, all this stuff.
Well, I hope that's a hollow thread. I really do. We've not noticed anything like that, but we certainly will be vigilant to pay